Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Thanks for joining us for Big Fox News tonight. I'm Scott Beadle. The second major winter storm in less than a week is impacting more than a third of the country. Heavy snow and ice is moving into the Twin Tiers, resulting in a winter storm warning into tomorrow. We have team coverage for you tonight. We begin with meteorologist Todd Nelson, who tells us what we can expect. Todd.
Winter storm warnings continue through 3 p.m. Friday across the region for heavy snow that'll be taking place overnight tonight and through the first half of the day Friday. This pink color indicates that sleet and snow mix that we've been dealing with for much of the day, but at some point overnight tonight we'll see heavy snow take shape, and that will linger into the early part of our Friday. Now, coming up in Maine weather with Monica, we'll talk about snow totals and how cold it will get as we slide into this upcoming weekend.
All right, thank you, Todd. Continuing our team coverage now, we turn next to Big Fox's Matt Kleindens, who shows us how people in Painted Post are dealing with this wintry weather.
Good evening. With snow falling in the southern tier, people are rushing to their local hardware stores to get their supply of shovels and rock salt. The southern tier was hit with snow and freezing rain throughout the day, and residents have been turning to hardware stores like Home Depot to get last-minute supplies.
There's been a lot of focus. The customers have been in nonstop.
Manager Lucas Petronik says customers have been flocking to the Painted Post Home Depot for the past few days. He says items like shovels and bags of rock salt have been flying off the shelves.
It's a non-stop thing. It's like a revolving door. We're bringing them out and people are coming in and taking them as quick as we can bring it out.
With the winter storm warning expecting to last until Friday, Petronek says they are trying to keep enough supplies on hand.
So we've got trucks that have been rolling in. We're placing emergency orders, that kind of thing. Just trying to make sure that we're ready for the influx of customers.
He says his team is working hard to make sure residents have everything they need for the rest of the snowstorm.
Our big thing is just making sure it's accessible and just easy and built for speed for the customer when they come in.
Matt Kleindens, Big Fox, WYDC and Painted Post.
Schools are looking for ways to fill the gaps amid all their staffing problems. Jonathan Seri has more.
Infections and hospitalizations are dropping nationwide, but the COVID-related death toll is on the rise. U.S. COVID fatalities reaching the highest level in a year as Omicron cases begin to flatten out. The U.S. COVID death toll rising 39% in the past 2 weeks. The latest forecast from the CDC estimates the total number of deaths could reach 965,000 by February 26. Officials are encouraging people to do their part to stay safe.
I want to emphasize once more is how important it is that the rest of us get vaccinated.
The rise in COVID cases is also impacting schools all over the country. In Nevada, officials asking the National Guard to step in and help keep schools open. A county in California announcing the district will merge several schools together to help with the shortages and the district's financial struggles. And in Virginia, State Senator Barbara Favola says she is looking to see if teachers can be brought in from outside the country.
We realized we have such a large number of well-trained teachers who received their licenses in a foreign country.
Senate Bill 68 would allow Virginia school systems to hire licensed teachers from outside of the United States under a provisional license for 3 years. Favola says the process will be a rigorous one. The bill has passed through the Virginia legislature and now awaits the governor's signature. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
President Biden confirms that U.S. Special Operations Forces carried out a successful counterterrorism mission in northwest Syria, killing the leader of ISIS. Madeline Rivera has more from Washington.
Senior administration officials say this incredibly complex operation has long been in planning and went precisely as expected. The president giving the final go on the operation Tuesday. This is what's left of a building after U.S. Special Operations Forces raided it overnight in a counterterrorism mission in northwest Syria.
We went out and saw planes above us. 10 minutes later, we heard screams. Surrender. The house is surrounded.
The leader of ISIS, Haji Abdullah, is now dead after the suicide vest he was wearing detonated, killing his wife and children too. No American troops were hurt in the blast.
Thanks to the bravery of our troops, this horrible terrorist leader is no more. Our forces carried out the operation with their signature preparation and precision.
Syrian civil defense teams say they recovered the bodies of 13 people, including 6 children and 4 women who were killed in the clashes and bombing that followed the U.S. airborne operation. But senior administration officials argue some of the numbers don't align with their information, adding the victims were killed by ISIS terrorists and not by American troops.
I directed the Department of Defense to take every precaution possible to minimize civilian casualties.
Officials believe Haji Abdullah's death will be a significant blow to ISIS, calling him one of the terrorist group's few remaining legacy leaders.
ISIS right now is growing once again, so it's good to see raids like this.
Officials say there was also a mechanical issue with one of the U.S. helicopters during the operation. As a result, the military destroyed it. In Washington, Malda Rivera, Fox News.
President Biden laid out his administration's strategy to tackle rising crime rates across the country during a visit to NYPD headquarters today. The president emphasized both increased funding for law enforcement and aggressive enforcement of gun safety laws. This marks his highest profile effort to date to model the Democrats' election year balancing act of supporting law enforcement while also insisting on new police accountability. The Gun Violence Strategies Partnership meeting was attended by more than 100 people, including New York City Mayor Eric Adams, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, and members from 25 law enforcement agencies.
Today, the Attorney General directed all U.S. attorneys in the United States to prioritize combating gun trafficking across state lines and city boundaries. The Justice Department is sending additional prosecutorial resources to help shut down what's referred to, as you all know, the iron pipeline that funnels guns from shops in states like Georgia to the crime scenes in Baltimore and Philadelphia and New York and so many other places.
According to the latest NYPD numbers, shooting incidents have increased by more than 30% compared to last year. Former vice presidential candidate and Alaska Governor Sarah Palin was in a New York City courtroom today to get her libel lawsuit against the New York Times underway. The lawsuit was postponed because Palin tested positive for COVID-19. She's seeking unspecified damages from the paper based on claims that an editorial in the paper hurt her career as a political commentator. Still ahead tonight, the pandemic continues to cause a massive blood supply shortage nationwide.
We have, in some instances, less than a day's supply of blood on hand.
More on the potential health emergencies this crisis is causing for hospitals and patients.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Welcome back. This weather forecast is being brought to you by William Mattar. We will see the bulk of the impact tonight as this long duration winter storm will switch over to all snow as we move through the overnight hours. You can see freezing precipitation to the south and west of us, but as we take a look at future radar, we've got snow, just a little ice to the south of us, and then all snow between 4 o'clock in the morning and about 7 o'clock in the morning. So again, this is going to be moderate to heavy snow, and it's going to be quite continuous as we move through the overnight into your morning. Here's a look at your forecast tonight at a glance. Yeah, the very gusty north winds diving in, it's going to make it feel a whole lot colder. It's going to feel like at times like we're down into the single digits. Our low temperature, about 18 degrees for our low temperature tonight. Forecast map for Friday, the cold air comes diving down into the area, and our wind chill will definitely be of concern. Those very gusty northerly winds is going to make it feel a lot colder than it is. For the rest of tonight, your low temperatures around the general area, we normally should be at about 25, but our temperatures are way below that, up toward Wayland, 17 degrees, down toward Westfield at about 18, and over toward Corning, temperature of about 20 degrees. Your forecast for Friday. We'll see some morning snow, maybe 2 to 4 inches for the morning, and still cold. Again, this winter storm warning does not expire until late in the afternoon for Friday. Very blustery north-northwest winds at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. So you've got blowing snow that reduces visibility considerably. So if you can, stay at home, limit your time traveling, because traveling can definitely be a serious issue. All right, we finally do clear up as we head into the weekend, and that's good. Saturday morning temperatures are frigid, coming in at 7 degrees, and then your Sunday morning low is 6 below. Again, the strong gusty winds will play a major role in keeping this cold air around and making it feel very uncomfortable. We start to trend upward and temperatures warm up by Monday.
The pandemic is continuing to cause a massive blood shortage. Kevin Cork has more on the potential health emergencies that this crisis is causing for hospitals and patients nationwide.
Every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs blood.
The American Red Cross says a critical blood supply shortage is putting hospitals across the country in crisis mode.
We have, in some instances, less than a day's supply of blood on hand.
The nonprofit humanitarian organization is responsible for providing at least 40% of the nation's blood. But now, those levels are so low, officials say some hospitals are postponing medical procedures.
It is forcing doctors to make a very difficult decision about who receives a blood transfusion and who must wait until there are additional products available.
I've heard from a number of hospitals that they've had to delay surgeries because they didn't have enough blood on hand.
Healthcare professionals blame pandemic restrictions and closures for the rapid decline in blood drives. And data from the Red Cross is highlighting the issue, showing college students made up 25% of blood donors in 2019, with that number plummeting to just 10% in 2021.
There's no blood drives at schools because schools were locked down. There's not as many blood drives at work because there's no work going on at offices.
But for those who are still going out and donating, they say it's an easy process with incredible payoffs.
Stay here for an hour or two, and then afterwards you go home knowing that you could have potentially saved a life.
This is the worst blood shortage in more than a decade. In fact, officials say it'll take months for supplies to return to their normal levels. I'm Kevin Cork.
If you're planning on popping some bubbly for Valentine's Day, it'll probably cost you more this year. Giovanni Ligi is in Napa Valley, California with more on why prices are rising.
It's all about the supply and demand. People are drinking more, and it's also costing more to produce. From production to popping open bottles, Domaine Carneros does it all.
We actually have a lot of grit here. We are agricultural workers.
It's a winery in Napa Valley, an area that produces most of the country's wine.
Our industry, being in the wine business, is based in agriculture, so we're used to dealing with the vagaries of Mother Nature and challenges and dealing with the unexpected. So we'll take bottles that are serpent, meaning upside down or on their point.
Unexpected and unprecedented for several years, something farmers say they are familiar
Very
with.
used to coming up with Plan B.
From drought causing low harvest to the rising cost of production, sparkling wine for celebrations is getting more expensive.
Because there have been some issues in terms of the supply chain, like many businesses are dealing with, mainly as it relates to packaging material, things that are paper and cardboard related and glass related.
Consumers are now paying more because of those rising costs. The average price for the bubbly is up almost 20% compared to 2019.
So as we see those costs increase, those are going to have to get passed on. So I would anticipate that you will be paying more for your sparkling wine during holiday seasons.
Plus, about 11% more sparkling wine was sold in 2021 compared to 2020.
Starting about spring of 2021, we've seen an unprecedented demand. We keep moving them.
Even with those rising costs of production, this winery in Napa Valley is staying true to the traditional French production methods.
To the neck of the bottle.
At this point, there is no shortage of sparkling wine. More people are buying the bubbly, though, and it's also getting more expensive to produce.
A rise in gun crime can be traced in part to the process of making them. According to one federal agency, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms says ghost guns made by 3D printers or buying parts and doing self-assembly, is contributing to the wave of gun violence in America. That process can be done in as little as 30 minutes. The ATF says ghost guns are untraceable and increasingly used by criminals with multiple prior arrests. Hundreds have been seized in cities like New York, Chicago, and Baltimore. Gene therapy is being credited for curing 2 patients of leukemia. In 2010, doctors from the University of Pennsylvania used experimental gene therapy to treat 2 patients for chronic lymphocytic leukemia. 10 years later, there's no sign of cancer in their bodies. The study was published in the journal Nature. In describing the 2 cases, researchers say the treatment, called CAR T-cell therapy, involves so-called living drugs that attack cancer immediately and then stay inside the body for years. 75-year-old Doug Olson, who was one of the 2 patients in the study, says he's doing great and remains very active today.
CAR T-cell therapies are exciting. Long-term remission such as this makes everybody super excited that we have given these patients a second chance of life.
Scientists say they hope to see wider use of CAR T therapies in the future. Animal shelters nationwide are reporting an alarming trend. Staffing shortages and a dip in adoptions are leading to overcrowding. Haley Winslow has more.
They're our best friends. They know when we're sad, are always loyal, and happy to see us. And they need our help.
We're facing a crisis in America's animal shelters because there are 100,000 more cats and dogs sitting in America's shelters right now compared to the same time last year.
The reason, more animals going into shelters and not as many coming out. Shelters are suffering staffing shortages and adoptions are down.
Now everybody, thankfully, is back to work and sort of back to real life. And I think a lot of people realize that they can't handle the commitment of having a pet.
Best Friends Animal Society says last year, U.S. shelters euthanized nearly 350,000 dogs and cats simply because they didn't have a safe place to call home. California at the top for saving and killing. Volunteers urge people to step up and save a life.
It's our mission here at Wags and Walks to help change the perception of shelter dogs because they're the best dogs in the world. So the more people will agree with us and try it and adopt and foster and volunteer, they'll realize that these shelter dogs are amazing and adopt them.
There's Sweet Aloe, the pit bull, who's about to go into labor any second. Same with Keeper, who volunteers just bathed and realized she's pregnant. This is Bozo and Gentle Ginger, Monet and Carlo. And then there are pitties like Juno, in isolation with kennel cough and a massive tumor, all awaiting rescue by their new best friend. They're someone to love.
Ziggy, say hi. This is my best friend.
2 cats are being killed for every dog in America's shelters. And so our pitty friends and our kitty friends need all the support they can get. They are angels from heaven.
Gas prices keep increasing weekly, now just 3 cents shy of a new 7-year high. According to AAA, the American Automobile Association, the average price of gasoline is currently at $3.39 per gallon. The gas prices have surged continually for 5 weeks. Inflation, which surged 7% in December, has affected the prices of fuel, diesel, natural gas, and oil over the last few months. Energy costs have rocketed 29% over the past year, due mostly to large demand. We want to leave you with a smile tonight. What sweets do our hearts hanker for on Valentine's Day? CandyStore.com says it's a heart-pounding race between 2 Valentine's Day treats, Conversation Hearts and heart-shaped boxes of chocolate. And Conversation Hearts seem to be back on top again in terms of overall sales, but the chocolates also state their case. 16 states like chocolate heart boxes, 12 prefer Conversation Hearts. Some other state favorites, M&M's and Hershey's, and Nebraska and West Virginia like Cupid corn. And yes, if you were wondering, Cupid corn is just different colored candy corn. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.